everybody.
Hello and welcome everybody. We are so excited to have Mike Archer back for your sales certification course with Archer Travel. How you doing today, Mike?
Oh, I am well. It's actually hot. We actually have summer in Seattle. So it's cool. It's going to be in the 80s today. So I get to stay inside because I hate going outside when it's hot. But
That,
it'll be fun.
that's
So,
wonderful. Oh, I
yeah.
just had one thing I wanted to say, Mike. I think it's so interesting when I ask you how you're doing, you always say, well, and it always catches me off guard because no one ever says that. But it keeps me intrigued in the conversation because no one says that. So I feel like that's like a something people could use in sales too. Not saying the normal good or fine, using a different word to catch people's attention.
Um, well, when I say somebody said something to me a long time ago about the difference between telling somebody you're good and telling somebody you're well. And it's actually a short form. A lot of times when I'm talking to people, I will say my soul is well, and that really throws them off guard. But
I bet
for
it threw me off guard right now.
but for most of the time, I just say I am well because it implies more than just to me. It implies more than just physically being well or being good. It implies a spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being. It just kind of describes. I feel it describes me a little bit better than just saying, "Hey, I'm good" or "Things are good." So I just like to make it a little more personal, and it helps to, especially with people that I've just met for the first time, it helps me establish a relationship a little better. I don't know why. It's just a quirk I have.
I
And I've
love
been
that.
saying it. I've been saying it for years.
Well, I think
So,
the travel agents can take note of that and maybe try to implement a word that they appreciate more than just the normal ones everyone says.
well, it's just part of who I am, and it's not for everybody, but if it is, hey, use it or find something that describes you out of the ordinary than just the mundane. I am good or things are good or things like that. It's just another way to express who you are, I think. So, but anyway, that was a great rabbit hole we just went down. That was cool.
Yeah, well, it has to do with sales, so why not?
So, all right, everybody. So we are in lesson 4. So you should be on page 16 in your manuals. And this is the last part of establishing the relationship and helping to get on the same page. So we're going to take what you've learned about your own style, how you manage your style plus the style of the people that's with you. Now we're going to put it to the practical application. So we're going to talk about, okay, we've got all this stuff now. So what do we do with it in an actual setting? And that's our communication skills. So the first thing we want to do, Amanda, do we want to tell them where this stuff is found, or do you think they've got it already?
Just in case we have new people, I'll just say it really fast. And I'll put it in chat too so you guys can look after. You go to the back office, you log in, you click Travel Cafe, you go to the trainings hub. We want you to get started right away, so it's under Quick Start, and then you click the sales certification, and you're going to find everything for Mike's course right there. Sales certification class. Perfect.
All right, cool. All right, so the very first thing that you want to do is what kind of a climate, what kind of a setting do you want to set up for when you meet somebody? And these are called interpersonal climates. So before we dive into that, I want you to understand that this is also part of Jose's training on the meet and greet and get to know your client part. So the two of us spend a lot of time on getting to know you because, again, this is a relationship business, and this stuff only works if you're going face to face. If you're a digital salesperson, this stuff isn't going to work because there's no way to apply it. So just remember, this is when you're in face to face, Zoom meetings, telephone calls, anything where you are in personal contact with your client. Okay, so the interpersonal climate is simply trying to establish what kind of a client, what kind of a setting do I want? And obviously we want it to be a good, pleasant, productive climate. So what we're looking for is approval. I'm good, you're good. Hey, let's move forward. Non-productive environments happen when you run into indifference, you run into disapproval, and we've showed you that starts to generate the backup behavior. And so we've given you the tools back in last week's lesson about how you deal with when somebody is under stress, how you can take care of it, so that this will give you the opportunity to take a not so good meeting and turn it back into a good meeting simply by using your backup behavior skills. And then finally, there's a destructive interpersonal climate where the whole thing just breaks down. And this happens when you get into it. And again, this is not just selling. These are life skills that you can use. And I'm sure you've all been in this situation where a relationship just went kablooey and it's dissipated. It's no longer there. And it's happened to you. It's happened to you personally, I'm sure. It will also happen to you in selling situations. So when that happens, and I've had it happen to me, it happens for whatever reason, you just don't get along. You haven't been able to figure out what they need. They haven't been forthcoming in what they need or what they want. For whatever reason, they're just not comfortable and they want to get out of the relationship. That's okay. Don't worry about it. You're not going to get everybody. So somebody told me one time, and this was a salesperson that I really respected. They said, I make sales calls. I have to get to 100 no's because at some point I know I'm going to get 1 or 2 yeses. So being told no, and I hit this in the first lesson, but being told no doesn't mean they're saying no to you. They don't know you. They don't know who you are. They don't know what's in anything about you. What they're saying no to is they don't feel a need for your products or your services. So that was a hard lesson for me to learn, being an amiable, because I want to set up the relationships, but we don't want to have those destructive climates. So we've given you the tools to try to repair those, but in some cases it's not repairable. And when that happens, just say thank you for your time, shake their hands, and go on to your next situation. Okay, so now we're actually into a sales call. What I want you to do, you're going to have some homework at the end of this lesson. So the initial benefit statement is nothing more than telling your client why you are there. All right. And there's 3 C's that go along with this. It needs to be crisp, it needs to be clear, and it needs to be concise. When you walk in the door, they need to know why you're there. Because remember, I told you the first decision they make is not if they like you or if they're going to buy from you. Their first decision is, am I going to continue do I want to keep listening to this person? Your initial benefit statement goes a long way to helping you move forward in the process. And you can see it in italics. I've given you a couple of examples at the bottom and in the top right column. So like, for example, if this is a cold call, you're walking in cold, you don't know the person, like if you're trying to establish a commercial account or something like that, you could just say, hey, hi, I'm Mike Archer from Archer Travel Service. And we are one of the key leaders in travel. And I'm here today to talk to you about how we can improve your commercial service by saving you time, energy, and money. Would you have a few minutes to talk to me? Now, that's not what I wrote down in here, but you get the idea. So take a look at this, and then take a look at the top of the right-hand column. If it's an appointment, you just simply change the wording to, hi, I'm Mike Archer from Evolution Travel. As we discussed, I'm here to talk to you about how we can serve your upcoming group travel needs by showing you how we can save you time, energy, and money. So on the appointment, you don't ask if they have time. On the appointment, you change it to, this will take X amount of time, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it happens to be. So, but the time part is absolutely crucial. You have to let them know how long this is going to take, because if you think it's going to take 20 to 25 minutes and they can only give you 15, you need to know that. So then you need to make a decision. Can I cram it all in into 15 minutes, or should I make another appointment to come back? What I would do at that point, excuse me, what I would do at that point is tell them, yeah, I shouldn't have never blown my nose. I got lost. What you tell them at that point is you cram it down into into 20 minutes, you cram it down into 15. That's what I would do, because I've always got extra stuff I can talk about. So you want to talk about that stuff too. You talk about the critical things. Take the things that can pique your interest. If they give you the full 20 minutes, great. You can go from there. All right. So that's what happens when you walk in. And so let's say that they've given you permission. Now you're actually in the interview. What we're going to talk about now is how you make that interview go from start to finish. And it's called the conversational circle. And you can see the chart here on page 16. So the conversation starts one of two ways. Either they make a statement or they will ask you a question, or you will ask them a question. So they make a statement to you, or you start by asking a question of them. Then what's going to happen, which completes the conversational circle, is you're going to ask a question, they're going to make a statement, and then from then on, you start giving them feedback. And we're going to get into the types of feedback here toward the end of the lesson. All right, so it's very simple. Statement or question, and then feedback. The feedback is really important because it lets them know that you're hearing them and that you're understanding them. And also the conversation, it allows both sides to talk. And that's really important. I'm going to show you why in a minute. Okay. So you can look down here. So this allows everybody to talk to prevent something called lock on, lock out. And when we get to page 17, we're going to talk about that. Now, part of this, there's a support package that goes along with this. It's both verbal and it's nonverbal. And this is what helps you identify their styles. Because remember, their verbal and nonverbal gesturing and talking allows you to judge what they say and what they do to identify their behavioral style. Now, one of the ways you can do this, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but it's called neurolinguistics. It's how we process information. All right. So there's three ways that we process information. One is through the eyes, one is through the ears, and the other one is through the senses. All right. So there's visual learners, auditory learners, and kinesthetic learners. And so non-verbally, when you ask a question, one of the chief ways to see how people process information is watch what their eyes do. And you can see it in the chart. So over here, visual learners will typically look up. Auditory learners will typically look one side or the other. And kinesthetic learners will usually look down and right. But at any event, they will look down when they're processing information. Now, what do you do with that information? It's really simple. One of the ways that you can be versatile is to change how you describe things. And you can see what some of the examples. So if somebody makes a statement and they're a visual learner, you can go, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I've seen that in my own situation. Or, hey, I hear what you're saying. It makes sense to me. Or if they're a kinesthetic learner, I felt like that sometimes too. So it's all in a matter of what words you use. And they're simple. It's just changing your vocabulary to match how they process information. And so let's say you're in the middle of your presentation and you're describing a beach scene in Waikiki. All right. So visual learner, can you just see yourself on the beach, taking in all that glorious sunshine and watching the surfers out there on the waves? Or can you just hear that breeze rustling through the trees and hear all the laughter and the chatter on the beaches? Or Can you just feel that sun baking into your skin? Can you just feel all that warmth and calmness as it starts to flood over you? So you see where I'm going with this. Just all you're doing is you're changing your verbiage to match how they process information, because that helps them. You're not doing anything except paying attention to them. And that's what's the really cool part about versatility. All right. So now that you've got that and paying attention to how people process information, now let's take it a step farther. It's one thing to process information. It's another thing to watch how they're reacting to what you're saying. And that's called telling tension. And telling tension, I want you to underline this right underneath the subheadline. Telling tension is the desire to talk before we are ready to listen. And that manifests itself in a couple of ways. So, all right, so the telling tension part is what we're doing is paying attention, and we have to be aware of when they want to talk. They could interrupt you, they could clear their throat, they could break their eye contact, but this is the single most important thing you can do in this process, is to manage that telling tension. That's why when they give you a statement, you give them feedback, so that's how you can talk. And then you ask them a question that allows them to keep talking. So you can see the teeter-totter. So the task at hand is to balance this tension. And it's balancing your tension with their tension, and it allows both sides to talk. And telling tension kicks in under a variety of circumstances. Anger, you can see over here on the right side of column page 17. Anger, defensiveness, enthusiasm. Whenever your client asks you a question, telling tension arises very quickly because we have the answer, but we don't want to give that answer right now, because that implies that we're selling. And we're going to get into this next week a little bit more, but when somebody starts talking to you, the overwhelming we desire is to sell them right there on the spot. So question, sell, question, sell, question, sell. And that's a very awkward way to do it. What we're going to do, and we're going to get into this again next week on a much deeper level, but that's not the right way to do this. And I'm going to show you why next week. Okay. All right. And then silence. Silence is a really strong motivator of telling tension, especially in amiables, because remember, if there's something going on, they're going to shut up. They're going to clam up. People don't like silence in conversations. We just don't. And we all know somebody who will, my father-in-law, if there was silence in the room, he would start humming the Star Spangled Banner or the Battle Hymn of the Republic. It was weird. People don't, a lot of people don't like voids in conversation. Now, managing this telling tension is not tough if you know what signs to look for. And those are some of the signs. If somebody's getting mad, if they're defensive, enthusiastic, silence. Okay, now why is this important? It's important because I want you to pay attention to lock on, lock out. And what I want you to do is I want to take a big yellow marker, and I want you to highlight lock on, lock out. And I want you to highlight telling tension, those two subheadlines. And I want you to draw an arrow between the two of them, because they are linked. And it's on the test. And I don't know why, but I talk to people about this lock on, lock out and why it's important. And I'm not kidding. 75% of the people that take the test don't get that question right. Lock on, lock out is a nasty result of unmanaged telling tension. Lock on, lock out is nothing more than this. When you're talking to somebody, and it's happened to you, and I know it has, and you're going to recognize this. You're engaging somebody in conversation, and they've said something, and whatever you want to respond with is really, really important to you. So you lock onto that. Now, what happens when you lock onto what you want to say? You have locked out everything that person is saying to you. Okay, you've locked it on, which means you've locked them out. And that's going to happen to you too. You're going to lock onto stuff and lock out what they're saying to you. And how do you recover from that if you don't know what they're talking to you about? Telling tension is like walking around, and we've all had this, walking around with a rock in your shoe. That rock is in there. You can't walk properly. It's driving you crazy. So what happens? Everything stops. You take the shoe off, you get the rock out, you put your shoe back on. That's exactly what lock on, lock out is like. And it's married to telling tension. So you need to really pay attention. The conversational circle is the key to helping you prevent lock on, lock out. And this is one of the most important concepts in this whole series. It has nothing to do with selling. It has to do with communicating. So it's one of the best ways you can keep from those situations from deteriorating and going into anything other than a positive climate. Okay, pay attention to this. Yeah, well, we got that. Okay, so now go over to page 18. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on meta talk because it's really meta means behind. It's the Greek word for behind. So meta talk is nothing more than what's behind the talk. And the most crucial one that I want you to pay attention to is at the very top. It's called the verbal eraser. And I know you've had this happen to you, and I know we've all done it. I hear what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but and however are verbal erasers. I see what you're saying, but I've just erased it. Whatever comes after the but or the however, that's the critical piece that they want to get across. It's not that they agree with you. It's that this is what they really want you to pay attention to. All right. So take that. Hold on a second. So take that and just go with it. It's the verbal eraser. Okay, the next one it's called feigned casualness. Oh, before I forget, you can bet your booties that before they forget, it's whatever is important to them. It's not a feigned casualness. Before I forget means this is really important to me. Pay attention to it. All right. Pleaders. How many times has somebody said to you, I'll do my best, or I will try? Is that what you want to hear from your heart surgeon? Is that what you want to hear from your dentist? I'll do my best? No. Those of you that are my age and you've seen all the Star Wars movies, the best line I ever heard was Yoda. Do or do not. There is no try. All right. So pay attention to that. If you can't do something, tell them you can't do it. If you can do something, tell them you can do it. If you don't know, that's okay. When I first started in the yearbook business, there was lots of stuff I didn't know. And so I would go into an advisor's room, and this is way before cell phones and emails and text messages. I said, look, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to call the plant because I know who has the answer to this. And I'll have this answer for you and I'll call you tomorrow. Or is that okay? They said, no, we're on deadline. We got to have this answer now. I said, okay, get me a phone. Well, back then there weren't phones in the classroom. So I marched down to the office and I said, I need to use your phone to call the yearbook plant because the advisor's got a question. And I would get the answer right there on the spot because it was an emergency. So do it. Don't do it. If you don't know, it's okay. And by the way, if you don't know, don't ever in this lifetime try to bull your way through it because you're going to get found out. It's okay. In fact, when you tell people you don't know, a lot of times you'll get a lot of respect from them because they understand. Now you're not trying to BS them. Now you're trying to help them understand by helping yourself understand. So pay attention to that. Confidence builders. Well, trust me, to be honest, to be frank. So when somebody says, trust me, what's the first thing that goes through my mind? Nah, I'm not so sure. To be perfectly frank, does that mean if you're going to be frank with me, but before you haven't? You need to avoid confidence builders like they're a disease, like they're the worst thing in the world that can happen. All right. So in the middle of page 18, I want you, there's a paragraph there that says, always ask yourself two questions. What impact do I have on others? How does my behavior affect them? And what I want you to do is I want you to underline that. What impact do I have on others? How does my behavior affect them? Okay. Now let's move on to feedback. Now, the rest of the time today, we're going to be on page 19. And there's some specific types of feedback that I want to highlight and I want you to pay attention to. All right. So the first kind of feedback is called support. And we're going to go through this on the feedback summary. So look over on the bottom of page 19. Feedback, the support when your client makes a positive statement, moves toward your position, or says anything that you would agree with. So when they say, man, that's really good, I'm glad we're on agreement on this. That's the feedback. Tell me a little bit more, or ask another question to go along with this. All right. So remember, you're going to give them feedback. Wow, that's really cool. I'm glad that you understand what's going on here. And then continue with your conversation by asking them another question. All right. The next one is called assurance. If they make a request, they start moving toward your position, or if they agree with that there is a need. Yeah, I'm really glad that you guys see the need for travel insurance on such a large group, because it's really important that you're covered in case something happens. And then go and ask another question. So assurance, it also shows approval. The next one is called acknowledgement. Now, this is one of the hardest concepts for people to understand. Is acknowledgement. It shows acceptance. It says something, they're saying something that you don't agree with. They're moving away from your position, or they object to whatever your opinion or position is, or they're postponing a decision. Now note, a returning question is really, really crucial here. I want to give you a really dumb story that'll illustrate the point. I am a new employee at Archer Travel Service, and I've just come to work, and it's the morning break, and I'm in the kitchen getting a cup of coffee, and Ron Archer walks in. And he doesn't know me, so he starts up a conversation, and he goes, I've been reading Mad Magazine, and I read that the moon is made of green cheese. That's interesting, Ron. I think you're right. I think it is made of green cheese. And we continue to talk, go back to work. Now it's lunchtime. I'm in there having lunch, and Reggie walks in, and he doesn't know me, so he's getting his lunch, and we chat. And he goes, I've been reading Science Magazine, and it's in it. I just read about the moon. It tells me it's made of rocks and hard stuff. And I go, I think you're right, Reggie. I think I'm there with you. So now it's the afternoon break, and Reggie and Ron are in there getting a Coke or water or something, and they're talking. And Ron says, I really like that new guy, Mike. He says, we were talking today, and he agrees with me that the moon is made of green cheese. And Reggie gets this look on his face like, what? He just told me he agreed with me on the moon is made of rocks and hard stuff. Now, how are they going to feel about me? The trust factor is not there. And that's what acknowledgement does for you. What I should have said is, depending on the position I agree with, what I should have said, Ron, that's an interesting concept about what the moon's made of. Not sure I can get there with you, but I respect your opinion. Now, have I agreed with him? No. Have I stated my position clearly and pleasantly? Yes. Is he going to think any less of me because I didn't laugh at him or do anything else? No. So now what's going to happen when Reggie and Ron get together in the afternoon when they're at their break? Now they both know where I stand. They understand where I am, and I have not done anything to damage the relationship. That's what acknowledgement does for you. Because if you're forced to say something that like you agree with, what inevitably happens, you put a verbal eraser in front of that. Well, I think maybe you're right, but, and then you try to explain your position. That is not the way to go here. Okay. When you're in a position where somebody's moving away from you for whatever reason, all you have to do is say, I understand your position. Let me ask you about this. That's where the returning question is crucial. Let me ask you about how did you arrive at that position? Where does your information come from? What you're trying to do is not argue with them. You're trying to understand where they're coming from. And there's a huge difference there. And it all comes down to you respect them. You're not trying to belittle them, but you need to understand where they're coming from. Never, ever, ever try to explain your position before you understand what their position is, whether they're objecting to something or whether they're delaying, whether they're postponing making a decision. This is one of the key things in sales is you have to have all the information in front of you before you can correctly respond to them. And acknowledgement is one of the key ways to do that when they're moving away from you. And it's how you can save sales. So pay attention to the acknowledgement part. Empathy. This is a really easy one. Whenever somebody complains, they show a strong negative emotion or they relate a sad or unfortunate experience. And it's all happened in the travel. Wow, I'm sorry your travel documents got stolen. Man, that must have really hurt. How did you resolve it? Ask a question. Okay. Empathy it shows acceptance and it shows approval, and it gives you an opportunity in the presentation to come back and help them understand how you can help them in that situation if you can. And those of you that are brand new with Archer Travel, after 70 years in the business, there's not a whole lot Archer Travel Service cannot do to help you resolve a situation. And if they can't, they know who to go talk to that can help you get all of this resolved. So just know that you have signed up with a really, really good company that knows what they're doing. And then finally, the last one is to restate. This is a really good one if you've gone into lock on, lock out. And you've locked onto something and you haven't heard a word they're saying, you can just simply restate the last couple of things. So you restate to buy time or to clarify a point or position or to help prevent backup behavior. So it's really important, especially if you zoned out, and we've all done it. We've all zoned out in personal conversations, in business conversations. Restatement is, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understood you correctly. Could you please tell me that again so I've got a good handle on it? It's a good way to cover yourself. So study these. What I want you to do for homework is I want you to write 2 initial benefit statements. And I want you to review some of the conversations in your mind as it relates to how could I have used this feedback to avoid whatever happened coming after that. So that's kind of it. So that's it for today. We went just about 30 minutes. So Amanda, do we have any questions from anybody? Oh, Amanda. Uh-oh.
We don't have any questions at the moment, Mike.
Okay. Thought I lost you.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted my mic, and then I did it. I double-clicked it, and I muted myself again, so I reverse Uno'd myself. I'm here now.
I know, you can't take you anywhere either.
No. Yeah, no questions for now.
Okay, perfect. Okay, guys. That's it for
actually,
this session.
we do have a question. Sorry, now that I said that. Do we email you our homework? They could. No.
You know what? Absolutely, you can. If you're doing the homework and you want me to take a look at it, absolutely, you send it over to me and I'll take a look at it and either say way to go, A-OK, or I'll make some suggestions. So you bet, I'll look at anything anybody sends me.
Perfect. So Donna will look forward. Mike will look for your email, Donna. So yeah, send over that homework. And then the next question is from Laura.
Yep.
By initial benefit statements, do you mean when you first start the conversation with a new client?
It's the first thing you say when you walk in the door.
Perfect. Well, good questions you guys had coming
Yes, good
in.
ones.
Yeah, if you guys have any more questions, reach out to Mike, give him a call. He's happy to work with you and through situations that have happened or you will happen. So, anything else you want to add, Mike?
Nope. I'll see everybody next week. We'll be in lesson 5, and believe it or not, we're actually going to get into the selling process next week. But it took all of this to set it up. This is the foundation. This last 4 weeks is the foundation for making the science of selling work on a personal level. So that's it. I'll see everybody next week. Bye.
Thanks so much, Mike. Bye.
You bet. See ya.